Dialectical Materialism, or the Dialectic. The official philosophy of communism is called Dialectical Materialism. In their literature, they often shorten this to the term diamat. The importance they attach to the study and understanding of dialectical materialism is indicated by the fact that in the medical course within Russia, more time is given to the study of dialectical materialism and communist history than to organic chemistry. They believe that philosophy not only interprets the total phenomena of being, but also provides a guide to action. That philosophy helps their program for changing the world. The author of the philosophy of communism was Karl Marx, and he formulated dialectical materialism by taking more or less intact the philosophies of two Germans, Feuerbach and Hegel. Feuerbach had enunciated the philosophy of materialism, which stated that matter in motion was the totality of being. Feuerbach, for example, had made the statement, man is what he eats. That man is essentially, totally materialistic. Hegel had formulated a complex system of philosophic thought known as the dialectic, and Karl Marx married these two to formulate the worldwide communist philosophy of dialectical materialism. Some of the features of dialectical materialism are very important to give us an understanding into the flexibility of communist tactics and strategies as they manifest from day to day. The first feature of the dialectic is the assumption that within the system of change that is universal, there is a principle of progress from a lower to a higher form of organization. The change is not simply blind and repetitive, but that progress is inherent within change. Applying this principle to human society, the communists reached the assumption that socialism and communism are higher forms of social organization, and that they are inevitable because of the progressive pathway of history, that history itself has determined inevitable communist victory. Their assurance on this point is theoretical and derived from their philosophy. The second important feature of the dialectic is the method of change. The dialectic teaches that in any given situation there are two forces contradicting each other, two forces in conflict with each other. And this conflict or contradiction is the engine that drives progress forwards. The name of one force is called the thesis. The name of the opposing force is called the antithesis. They believe that the thesis-antithesis conflict is the dynamic of progress. Believing this, they say that this conflict never gives even, steady evolutionary change, but always results in a series of crises in which slow gradual change gives rise to rapid fundamental change. At this point, one of the forces overthrows and negates the other and establishes a totally new balance of forces which is qualitatively different from the previous balance. This critical point where one overthrows the other, the communists identify as the revolutionary point. Applying this to the study of capitalism, they believe that the class struggle between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat is the dynamic of progress, that this gives a period of slow, gradual change or development, but inevitably it reaches a critical point where the proletariat overthrows and negates the bourgeoisie, and there is a qualitative transformation, the establishment of socialism. They believe, therefore, that revolution is absolutely imperative for the transformation of capitalism to socialism, so they proudly take to themselves the name of revolutionary. The next very important feature of communism is the pathway of change. Their slogan is "Nature acts dialectically." This means that change does not take place in a series of straight lines. It does not take place steadily in the same direction, but by a series of advances and retreats. It's like hammering in a nail. It's rather foolish if a man raises the hammer, brings it crashing down with a resounding blow, and keeps on pushing. When that blow has spent itself, the hammer is reversed. An individual who was limited in time, observing the hammer moving away from the nail, would quite reasonably say, that hammer is not driving in that nail. The individual's changed his mind. The whole project has been abandoned. But when you understand the process, you see that the withdrawal of the hammer is as essential to the driving in of the nail as the downward thrust. Applying this principle of dialectical progress, the communists believe that retreat is often just as important as advance, that frequently it is necessary to move away from your goal in order to surge towards it at a later date. Therefore, it's impossible to judge the goal of communism by the direction in which they're moving at any given time. The objective is fixed, it does not change, but the direction of progress towards the goal reverses itself all the time. This gives the communists a complete flexibility in their day-to-day programs. They can be advocating causes which are the exact reverse of their basic objectives. Their basic objective is, for example, the abolition of all private property. They have come to power in Russia and China by the advocacy of private property. The basic objective is the abolition of all religion. It's quite legitimate for the communists on their dialectical pathway to patronize and support religion for a given period. Their basic objective is the abolition of nationalism. As Karl Marx said in the Communist Manifesto, the working class have no country. Nevertheless, they are super-nationalists in practically every country throughout the world. To them, this is not hypocrisy or deception, it is the scientific application of the dialectic. The communists believe that their progress must be made very often in terms of a surge forward to bring on the pressure, and when that surge has stopped itself, you then withdraw. This principle is outlined in the Chinese Communist March: 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. An illustration of this method is this imaginary incident. Suppose you're the man of the family with a charming wife and a lovely daughter, and a crazed gunman enters the house and points a gun at you. He says, "Call down your wife and your daughter." You obey. He then says, "I propose to shoot your daughter first. I want you to hear her scream and watch her die. Then I propose to shoot your wife so that she dies lingeringly. When this is done, I propose to shoot you." Can you imagine the emotions, the tension, the thoughts surging through your mind, the alternative courses of action suggesting themselves to you, wondering whether if you waited patiently you could catch him off guard in the future, wondering whether it would be better to stake everything on one mad rush, wondering if this was the end of life and all its hopes, and you just were making up your mind to rush him when suddenly he smiles and says, well, let's consider again. Let's negotiate. Give me $1,000, I'll forget the whole thing. Can you imagine the surge of relief? What a generous offer. Overwhelmingly, life changes from gloom and darkness to radiance and hope. This man, for $1,000, is going to give you back the life of your daughter, the life of your wife, your own life. What tremendous generosity. And in that relaxation, the man secures that which has been his goal all the time. So the communists believe in putting on the pressure, reaching a certain point, and then relaxing. And in the period of relaxation, securing the objective they desired. The action of Khrushchev in putting the missiles in Cuba, bringing the world to the brink of thermonuclear war, and then agreeing to take the missiles out of Cuba and getting a guarantee that communism in Cuba would be inviolate henceforth, is a superb illustration of the application of this principle. People tended to forget that Khrushchev was the man who placed the missiles in Cuba. He was the peace lover, the man of peace. Everyone thought that the great advocate of thermonuclear war was Mao Zedong. When Khrushchev agreed to take the missiles out of Cuba, he was referred to, for example, by Bertrand Russell as the savior of the world. The communists, by the application of the principles of the dialectic, have been able to deceive countless millions, ensnare them, and finally to enslave them. Deception is at the heart of communism, but to the communists it is not immoral. It is not unrighteous. It is the logical, scientific application of the basic principle of the universe, the dialectic.